in the cup.
That's a horrific start to a podcast. Just in the one place you want to be hydrated for, and you've lost
Uh,
the straw.
yeah, but I got it. See,
Oh, he's back. He's back. Good to see you again, brother. It's only been a
yeah,
few
I'm back.
weeks, which is very strange for us to say, because for those of you listening, Dave and I hadn't seen each other face to face since I think it was 2013 or 2014, until about
Yeah,
6 weeks ago. So I like to assume that this is going to become like a regular habit, and not just a podcast episode, but an excuse for a catch up.
yeah, absolutely. Love that idea.
It's been a little while, man. How's things going the last couple of weeks since I saw your good looking face?
Oh, it's been good. I've been hitting hard on the training that I have for Tahoe 200, which is coming up next summer, and I hired a coach for that, which is good because I am not a runner, and so that's been good. I've been starting to feel stronger and living the life of a single dad and having a good time with it. So
Very nice. But yeah, that's one
yeah,
thing I was interested, because we were playing table tennis in Oregon about 6 weeks ago now. And you said, "Hey, I'm curious to pick your brain about the ultra marathon scene." And I said, "Hey, don't come to me about ultra marathons, because I want to learn about ultra marathons from you. I've got a general idea of what's involved in running an ultra, but part of the reason I'm so fascinated by people like yourself is because ultra marathons just terrify me. Like, I ran one marathon and it was a very ugly experience. And when we were having a chat in Medford a couple of weeks ago, the fact that I think you mentioned this Tahoe 200 to me, the fact that you were looking for a coach, I didn't realize it was next year. So what you've got plenty of time to train for it, huh?
I think so. And on the concept of ultra marathons being terrifying, they terrify me too. So
Well, I think that's part of the appeal. That's part of what I love
yeah,
about you is, and we'll get into this soon as well. You're the kind of guy that the psychological appeal of these physical challenges is, I'm guessing, probably even more of an appeal than the actual physical struggle that you're going to have to go through. I guess they're sort of so tightly interwoven that it's a beautiful combination. But walk us through the process of getting a coach, and sort of what you've been doing for training for the first, is it couple of weeks you guys have been working together?
we're actually on week 6 now already. It's been flying by, but it's been interesting. After we talked when you're here, I started thinking more about training and really diving into your podcast even more. And I've been learning two things. One is that I appreciate the podcast. I'm definitely a fan of your podcast now. Second point is, I think I'm the first guy you've talked to that weighs in at over 180 pounds. So I'm happy to represent the plus size runners in your sphere of influence. Um, but yeah, so I hired the coach, and this is my first time having a coach, besides the cross country and track and field that I did in high school. And honestly, it's been one of the best things ever. It's more intensive than any of the coaching I've ever gotten. We're just taking data, looking at my runs. He's able to tune my training plan. He's even looking at things like sleep, total elevation gain and loss, paces, heart rate, cadence, all sorts of different numbers that play into it. So honestly, it's been great. And even 3 weeks into it, I was feeling so much stronger.
That's awesome, man. It's one of those sports as well.
Yeah.
I always say it's interesting speaking to different people about the sport, because so many people get excited about different things. And one of the things you can get excited about in the world of distance running is all the little numbers and measurements and online tools that exist today, from, Garmin to, I use a training program with my athletes called Training Peaks, which just gives you such insight into a lot of the things you just said, from heart rate to distance to speed to recovery to sleep. I always laugh because I had a friend stay with me in London one night, and that sounded more sexual than it was supposed to. It was just a friend. We were just catching up. And he stayed at our place, and he woke up that morning, and he goes, "Hey, Pops, guess what?" I go, "What?" He goes, "I got a PB for sleep." I said, "Okay, this is a ridiculous concept. Like, the fact that we're in a world now where you can be setting PBs for an 8 hour sleep is really interesting." But how do you enjoy all
Yeah.
the little intricate details? Do you like getting caught up on the numbers and having a look at what they're sort of offering you?
Yeah, sort of. A lot of ultra runners are not inclined that way. I listened to an interview with Courtney Dowalter. Do you know her?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She's a pretty big name American ultra runner, and she was on Rogan's podcast about 5 years ago. And what's significant about that podcast was that it was incredibly boring. Rogan, first of all, Rogan was on something, so he was completely wired. And second, Courtney, yeah, he was completely focused on this idea. She must have some sort of magical plan or supplement or something that's making her so successful. And over again, she just said, "Yeah, basically just like nachos and beer, and I eat a lot of it, and I just run pretty far." That's pretty much what the podcast came down to. So I know people like her are very inclined towards numbers, but that's one of the things I've enjoyed learning about from you and your podcast is the focus on systems. And I'm in the process of developing more systems for my life because we all have systems. They're just not all good systems. And I firmly believe that garbage in equals garbage out. So I enjoy taking things like total elevation gain on a run and applying that data to improving future runs. So I guess to answer your question, yeah, I do enjoy that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a funny point you make about Courtney and the ultra distance running scene, because I think you're new enough to it and not obsessed enough with it to not fit into the category of being the stereotype of boring. Sorry to all you ultra marathon runners listening to this. I don't mean this personally, but I mean some things we just have to own up to. And I think runners in general have a reputation in many places of not being the most exciting. I guess it's when you don't really know a runner and you look at it from the outside. Over here, the Australian Football League has a reputation, probably well-deserved for being a bit of a boys' club. And then I was really nervous going from the world of distance running when I retired back in 2013 to the football world, because I thought, I'm just not a boys' boy, I don't think. And I got down there and it was like a pleasant surprise how nice the guys were. And, you have a couple of Muppets, but that's with any group of people. So, I definitely can appreciate where you're coming from with the ultra distance running scene and the fact you have to be a little bit boring. But it's kind of not a surprise, I guess, because I guess it attracts that introvert kind of personality, that person who is, pretty happy to spend hours and hours by themselves and just enjoy their own company. And as I said, I was sort of keen to pick your mind around a couple of these things, because anyone who knows you even a little bit appreciates the fact that you've got a real appreciation for the psychological challenge that comes with, whatever physical effort that you're going to be putting in there. And is that sort of part of the appeal of this Tahoe race for you? Like, what was the motivation for you to go, all right, I'm going to give this a go?
Well, I had a couple beers and I put my name in for the lottery. And that was the motivation. I had applied last year. There's so many people that apply, they do a lottery. And to my knowledge, most of the people that got accepted to the Tahoe 200 had a pretty good running pedigree. I'm not one of those people by any stretch of the imagination. So I did not think I was going to get in. And I did. So, but yeah, on the psychological side, I think that is, you described it pretty well. People that are okay with being alone and in their mind for quite a long time and churning out the miles. And so that's one thing I wanted to ask you. Why do ultras not appeal to you? Or maybe they do, you just haven't done them yet.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, the fact was I was a better sort of middle distance runner. So I think my little purple patch, my sweet spot was between, I didn't have a super, super high top end speed. But then if you put me on a marathon start line, I don't think I was necessarily the most talented or even putting in the most effort to the endurance side of training. So I always felt like when I got to an event like a 1500 or a 3K up to sort of a 5K, I was in my real sweet spot. And I think more than anything, it was just because I felt as though I tapped into a little sweet spot, that even the curiosity when I was running seriously to go out and do an ultra wasn't that high. I can honestly say, like, I reckon the conversation around ultra marathons have become way more appealing to me since I finished running. And I think it's because, like you, and I think this is why we get on so well, is I think we both like a challenge. We both like to put our body to the limits and test that. And I always felt like I was getting a fairly good dose of that when I was competing as a middle distance runner. But now that I'm not, I got my stand-up comedy, which is like a little bit of an outlet in terms of, maybe more of a mental challenge and a challenge to my ego. But there's no real physical challenge that I have. So the idea of potentially tapping into a couple of these in the next couple of years isn't out of the question. Like even the idea of an Ironman, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Ironman. Like that, we measure it in the metric system. So it's a 3.6K swim, 180K bike ride, and then a marathon, 42Ks. Don't know what that converts to in miles, but even they've become something that I'm probably slightly more open to doing, in the next couple of years. But yeah, that's a long story short. It was just, I just didn't think it matched my skill set back in the day.
Yeah, I gotcha. I hear you. It is encouraging to go to these ultra marathons, and I don't know what the median age of most of the runners are, but I guarantee you it's over age 30. And in fact, there's quite a few people out there that are in their 60s and even 70s. So it seems like it's a sport that's pretty sustainable. Have you ever heard of a guy named Fergus Crawley?
Fergus Crowley, no.
Yeah, he seemed like a guy that you'd be interested in. I wrote down some of his stats here. I don't know what he's accomplished in the last year, but his shtick is hybrid athleticism. And so let's see, in 2021, he accomplished a 227 kilogram or 501-pound back squat, a sub 5 minute mile, and a marathon all on the same day, dude.
That's the kind of
But
fitness you want. I
yeah,
find that kind of fitness attractive.
and me too, very attractive. But get this, the next year, speaking of Ironmans, he did a 1200 powerlifting total. I think the powerlifting total is squat, deadlift, bench press. If I might be off on that slightly, but it's 1200 pounds total. And then he ran a sub 12-hour Ironman triathlon on the same day.
Man, this is
Pretty
what I
wild.
love. This is what I love. Actually, while we're throwing out just fun little stats, one of my favorites is the American marathon record holder right now. His name is Ryan Hall. I don't know if you know him, but he ran a 2:04 marathon. It was the most incredible athlete that I've. This is a big call. Not the most incredible athlete I've seen come out of America, because you guys have some of the best, but he's in the distance running world. He's hard to compare to, in my opinion. But if you have a look at, and for those of you listening, Google Ryan Hall before and after, because he spent so many years being a distance runner where his ribs were the most prominent feature of his torso, that once he finished, he said, you know what? Well, I'm going to get into the bodybuilding scene. And bro, he took that marathon mentality of, all right, like this is how you work hard for running. I guess you just transfer that same discipline and that same mindset into the world of weightlifting, and he looks phenomenal. Actually, he looks too big.
No way.
He looks like
Really?
yes, man. He's
Whoa.
incredible. It's been the most amazing transformation, and he's got a short little clip on YouTube. I'm not sure what the actual times were, but he was doing a massive deadlift. Like he was trying to, I don't even want to guess the number because I'll be way off. But it was from straight into a deadlift to wanting to run a 5 minute mile, sub 5 minute mile. And I mean, he got the deadlift, and I think, spoiler alert, he didn't quite hit the time that he wanted. But it's really interesting just seeing the high levels of both endurance and physical strength that are possible with people like that. Hey, it's kind of mind blowing.
That's unreal. I'll have to look him up. I've heard the name, but last I heard he was a marathon runner, and I didn't know he was weightlifting. So
Yeah,
you're into guys like Wim Hof too, right?
I'm very into guys like Wim Hof. I have a
Yeah.
reputation for, a lot of my friends just call me a hippie, because whoever's a little bit left of center, I go, you know what, I like this person. I'm really interested in this. And Wim Hof was one of those guys that I saw his documentary. I think it was called Iceman, or whatever it was. And it opened with him swimming under sheets of ice. And that just immediately terrified me, because where the ocean over here is 100 meters that way. And each morning I'll try and go over and I'll just do like a 10-minute swim. And it's probably, I'm telling you a lot of Celsius and our kind of measurements, but it's about 11
It's okay.
degrees Celsius, 10 on a really cold day. And for
Which is
me, I'm
like,
like, all right,
which is like 28 Fahrenheit.
yeah, I
I'm
get
just
so
kidding. I'm
confused.
messing with
I don't even know Fahrenheit. So if that's impressive, let's go with that. But if it's not,
you.
it's
Yeah,
probably a little bit colder. What, 30 Fahrenheit's freezing, isn't it? Is that right?
32.
Which makes no sense. Just make it
Makes no
zero. Like,
sense. No, I totally agree. Your standards are way better.
yeah, dude. So I'm really interested in people like that, just to see how far they can, just push the physical limits. And I think maybe for people like us, that is the attraction to ultra distance running, or at least just distance running.
Yeah, absolutely, man. What's hard to do is take concepts like what Wim Hof is proposing and translate that to something like a 200-mile race. But I think that's part of the appeal, is making that connection. That's part of the challenge.
Mm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, totally agree. I was curious to pick your brain a little bit because you've got more experience in the ultra marathon scene than me. You've run a couple before, haven't you? I remember. So our brother-in-law, Sammy Blackmore, the great man, one of the best
Yeah,
looking men in Medford. He
agreed.
he was he was telling me that you'd done a couple of real challenging runs in your time, or real challenging challenges. And I don't know much about it. And I think when we caught up, table tennis was the main focus, so we didn't really focus too
Yeah.
deeply on our running stories. But like, what is your sort of history in the ultra marathon running scene? Because it's not like you've got an established career in it, is it? It's just something you've dabbled
Oh,
in.
oh yeah, totally dabbled. I think I've run 7 ultras so far, something like that, maybe
That's
8.
more than I thought. I didn't realize you'd done that
Yeah.
many.
I love doing things weird and inconvenient and uncomfortable ways. And that's kind of the story, what it comes down to with my ultras. My brother started running ultras before I did, and I think he's the one that kind of inspired me to get into them. But my background is I ran track and cross country in high school. I sucked at it. I got varsity letters, but it was mostly a sympathy thing, I think. my coach my coach handed it to me when he saw me working hard at it. And it was mostly, I didn't really enjoy it at the time. I did it to get into college, and so it was a necessary thing. Went to college, was in the Army after that, and my time in college and in the Army, it really gave me an appreciation for doing things the hard way and being tough, and having physical fitness as really a daily lifestyle event. Um, yeah, I got into marathons and then ultra running. And then back when barefoot running was a fad, I was into that for a while. And everything up to my life to this point has really just taught me so many things. And even barefoot running, for example, it changed my running form, and I still run that way. And I have an appreciation for being barefoot and what that brings to the table. So it's just kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different things.
Yeah. What was the barefoot event you did? Or is it
I
just a
did a
phase of
couple.
training?
It was both. Did you ever read Born to Run?
Yes, I had something about like I want to say, is it a South American tribe?
Mexican tribe, yeah, yeah,
Mexican tribe, yeah.
yeah. It's all about, very minimalist, almost barefoot running, if not barefoot, and so that kind of inspired me, and it did a lot of people. It was a big. This was, around 2008, 2009, and a lot of people went to those Vibram toe shoes, and I had those for a while, and that was regrettable and embarrassing, but who cares?
I'm glad you could
Um,
acknowledge it. I didn't want to have to. I didn't want to have to highlight it live on the podcast.
I'll do it myself. You write the book on running. I'll write the book on self-deprecation. The title will
I
be
could have a
Dave's
couple of chapters.
Deprecation.
Yeah, dude, I'd have a couple of chapters
Yeah,
to contribute to that one.
that'd be good. Subtitle would be Don't Worry, It's Not Very Good. But I started running, and I did a couple smaller races barefoot, and then I did the Austin, Texas Marathon barefoot, and then I did a 50-mile trail race barefoot, and that was my last one at that point.
Dude, so are these on road, or are these like, what's the story? Obviously the trail one's on a trail, but the Austin Marathon barefoot, is that just a standard marathon? And you said, all right, I'm gonna do this without shoes?
Yeah, yeah,
That's insane.
yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing. See, I missed this fad. I just would have loved to have been there. So are you saying you were running him in those little toe shoes, or were you running it completely barefoot?
No, I got rid of the toe shoes once I realized I was married at the time, so I didn't need to worry about attracting a mate. But they're just not cool at all. And honestly, I mean, they were fine. They serve a function, but who cares if they're cool or not? But I just wanted to go full on barefoot, and I was glad I did, because it really changes the game.
Did you have any
Yeah.
trouble with
So
injury and things as you were transitioning across?
no, not once. And in fact, it really helped me out. I knew of some people that got injured, and I think the reason they got injured was because they just went from 7 millimeter drop shoes directly to barefoot, and they'd start running full. I eased into it pretty good, and I think that's what helped out. But I would do things like with that 50-mile trail race. I trained for that both by running barefoot, but also I had a bunch of lava rock in the front yard, and I put that in a Tupperware. And for hours, I would just march on it, just hammering my feet and stuff like that. I know that would appeal to you. It appealed to me at the time. It worked out great. So.
Well, it's funny. I've got a reputation in this town because it's a fairly small town that we live in. I don't know, like it's two towns combined. I would guess the population is probably a little bit over 5,000, maybe even less when it's winter. But a lot of the time I'm rocking around bare feet just because of what you said. Like I like the idea. I just find it comfortable to get out of my shoes, and it's a bit of a hippie. It's affiliated with hippies and stuff at the moment, but it just feels good to get out on the grass in barefoot and out on the sand. And I like to walk over with little Charlie boy, take him to the beach and let him do the same, just to get a bit of a feel for his feet. I don't know if there's any truth in this, but in my mind, it's doing something for his balance and just helping him get a little bit of a feel for his body. And you could probably explain the barefoot scene more to me. I haven't Googled anything. I just thought, you know what, like while he's not complaining that he hasn't got his shoes on, I'll keep doing it. And we'll often go over there's a little car park just before the beach, and it's just gravel. And we'll walk across there, and especially after we've been doing it for a while, there's not too much flinching going on. And there's always a group of old ladies over there around the same time that we get across. And she's like, I don't know why you're doing this to yourself or your little boy. And I was like, look at him. Does he look stressed? He's the happiest kid you'll see. And then he'll step on a protruding rock, which will, shake up the system a little bit. But mostly he's like you. He hasn't been practicing on lava stone, but he's developed a little bit of a capacity to walk across a lot of things that you would be surprised to see an adult, let alone like a little kid, walk across.
Absolutely. And as you know, I have 3 little kids myself, and it's the same thing. They just walk around barefoot so naturally, whereas adults have major issues walking across the most basic surfaces. So it's really interesting to see. My kids and I, we did a hike up north. I live in Southern Oregon, of course, and we did a hike up north, and 10 minutes into the hike, I said, hey guys, you guys want to go barefoot just to see how it goes? And it was a trail and really rocky and rooted and mostly dirt and mud. And they said, yeah. And all 3 of my kids went barefoot, and it was 6.5 miles total. And it's a great bonding experience. And it's so fun to watch kids do that because they do it so naturally.
Well, man, speaking of your kids, I'm gonna highlight something here. I didn't realize how much of your mindset they had in them. Like you've got 2 girls and a little man, and I thought, okay, well, we all went out to, what was it called, Lake of the Woods. Or I was out at Lake of the Woods with the kids and Sammy, and Sammy had set up like a big rope climbing thing. I'm not sure if they'd told you about this, but there was a big rope. I don't know what they're called. They're like artificial rocks. And anyway, I saw the height of this, and Sammy said to me, he goes, mate, like, are you going to come up? And I said, I'll just go up till I feel comfortable. And it was myself, Tom, and another friend of ours, and Sammy. And I got about halfway up, and I said, well, I can't back out now because I'm up here and the whole family's down there watching. And I got peer pressured into getting to the top of that tree. It came down. Then Sammy said to your 3 kids, guys, you ready to go? Like, we'll just go up till you feel, it's uncomfortable. And I know Clara, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know about Nate, but I'm pretty sure all 3 of them made it to the top of this tree. I reckon it must have been like maybe 25 meters, I reckon. Say 20 to 30 meters. It was a decent tree. And I was up there being nervous, and your kids got up and down looking like it didn't sweat them like the tiniest little bit. They were completely fine, which was really humbling for me. But I guess the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Well, it's great. I mean, as you know, that's one of the great things about being a father is you can kind of lead your kids in the mindset that you can't change them for good necessarily, but you can lead them in certain mindsets. And kids really respond to that kind of leadership. If you say, hey, let's go, let's try this, let's experience life. This is really fun. Oftentimes they follow. And I think people lose that a lot. What do you think?
I totally agree. It's funny. I know Sam and I, when I was staying with him for 6 weeks, he said to me, he goes, it does my head in. He goes, I'll sometimes be sitting here changing my little girl's nappy. And it always seems to be at the time I'm either cleaning up rubbish or changing a nappy that I get a message from Dave, and he's at the top of some mountain with a beautiful view of a sunset, just going, hey, dude, just thinking of you. Hey, what are you doing? And I appreciate that. Like, I like the idea of, beyond running and everything, just trying to help my little kids. I got another boy on the way coming next month. And I just love the idea of trying to establish just, strength and resilience and things like that, even though that seems like a bit of a fad word. I like to, offer opportunities to them where they're sort of forced to grow. It's like, all right, you're out here. It's just, there's no other option. You can just sit here and get cold, or, we can push through it together. So I think, and honestly, I think part of that is my appeal to the world of distance running is you learn those lessons. And I think because I was a young guy passionate about improving my running performance, I picked up things like consistency, resilience, just showing up to something day after day. And then even more than that, beyond that, having to listen to your body. Like, how am I emotionally? Like, what are my stress levels like? How am I perceiving my efforts? Am I working hard, or am I just imagining that this is working hard? Or and I always feel as though, as a result of that, little things like just my ability to pick up when I'm getting sick or when I'm slightly off has been really magnified. And it's been one of the biggest pluses in my life. So I like the idea of, exposing my kids and future kids to those kind of situations, just like you for some of those reasons. But one of the things, man, which I wanted to pick your brain about, I've got it written down with an asterisk because I just think you're such an interesting guy to talk to about this, is that psychological thing, is that psychological challenge. Like, can you unpack that a little for me? What is the actual appeal to you of whether it's ultra distance running or, whatever else it is that you're doing, you're barefoot running, any examples that I've forgotten, please feel free to throw them in that keeps you coming back for more?
Yeah, that's a hard one to unpack. And to be honest, I'm still trying to unpack it myself. There's so many moving parts to it, as you know. Maybe it's simpler for other people. I don't know. I don't run just for sheer enjoyment of the run, even though I get that too. But it really is a mixture of kind of an outflowing of my faith and sort of this mindset of, if I don't run or do something like it, I'm going to die. So there's a survival mindset. And that seems extreme, but the homeostasis here is sitting on the couch watching Netflix. And honestly, that is what our culture goes to because it's so easy. And to me, that just spells death. And the data proves that. If you do that enough, garbage in, garbage out, you're going to die from that. So it's almost like you're fighting against that process. So it's survival, but it's also, to me, finding life. I don't love it when people over spiritualize sports. So I try to avoid that, but it's almost like they're inextricably linked. Running is a factor of life, and I feel so much more alive. Yeah, I'm sure you know about Eric Liddell, Chariots of Fire guy, and maybe this is cliche bringing it up, but his quote was something to the effect of, "When I run, I feel the glory of God." And honestly, I feel the same. So it's almost an act of worship and gratitude. Just a couple of days ago, I ran at Silver Falls State Park, which is a state park in Oregon, and it's an awful place, ugly. You should not. No, you should visit it, but everyone else should stay away. So I ran up there, and I had a really hard time pacing myself because I just felt like I was bursting with gratitude to be there, and the fact that I get to run. There's so many people in my orbit that can't walk, let alone run, and I get to enjoy this beautiful place as a runner. And so, to me, that's partly living. It's hard and it doesn't feel great in the moment sometimes, but that's living.
It's really good, man. I've had experiences like that before where you go out and, the flip side of that coin is where you go out and everything just comes together beautifully. And these runs, I'm not sure about your experience, but they're a little more few and far between. But there's no better high to me than going out and, doing a long run. Say you might be out for 90 minutes and getting to about 40 minutes and just realizing, oh my gosh, like my legs have hit a nice little rhythm. I'm not breathing too heavily. I'm just sort of flowing. I might have a podcast in the ears sometimes, or I might not. And just that experience that you get where things click and you go, oh, okay, this is just, I guess, how life works. You put in the hard work, and every now and then, life just throws you a thumbs up and things come together and you feel beautiful as you're going through the movements. But as you say, it's definitely not the default mode. And that's what a lot of new runners bump into. I think a lot of the guys that I coach are relatively new or newer to the sport. And one of the things they'll get stressed about is, oh, Tice, I felt terrible on today's run. And I go, yeah, yep. They go, yeah, what's that? I go, that's running. That's and obviously it could be a variety of factors, and you know, I don't skim over it so quickly all the time, but a lot of the time, like if you're eating well, you're sleeping well, you're new to the sport, welcome. That's how I feel most times I go out for a run. It doesn't feel fantastic, but there's something about it when you're sitting on the couch in the end of the night or standing on your lava rocks where you go, what an experience that is. I don't know about you, like my brother-in-law, Jesse's younger brother said, like, why do you go out and run? Don't you just feel like you want to sit on the couch? And I said to him, it just sort of came out, but when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I nailed that answer. I said, yeah, but sitting on the couch is so much more enjoyable when you've been out for that run because you've actually physically exerted yourself. Your calves are a little bit sore. Your hips are a little bit, so everything's just a little bit out of whack. And you go, no, I've earned this. Whereas the flip side of that is, like I should be going out for a run, but I'll just sit on the couch instead. It's a gross feeling. You're like, I'm a slob. I shouldn't be doing this. So it's such a rewarding sport when you start to understand, you know, that discomfort is part of what the attraction is.
Yeah. Well, hey, where's your nearest ski hill?
That's a very good question. So I'm in a place called Point Lonsdale, which is right next to the water. There's not many hills here. Maybe... Gee, Australians with geographical knowledge are going to judge me for this. I'm not 100% sure. So I'll just give a round figure. I'll say it's about 2.5 to 3 hours away.
Okay. All right. That's not too bad. That's a sport you should take up if you ever get a chance, is backcountry skiing, man.
For the same reasons.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's almost better in some ways. I mean, I'm biased on it, but
I feel like backcountry skiing is, I view backcountry skiing in Australia the same way an American would view surfing in Australia. There's like the idea of doing that in America sounds far more scary to me because of the animals that you've got out there that can actually kill you. Whereas here, we'll go up for a backcountry ski and you'll see a fox, which will run away from you, and you'll see a rabbit, which the fox is chasing. And then you might every now and then see I don't even know if this is true. Do we have deer in Australia? I'm sorry to my brother-in-law. He's a keen hunter. I don't know the answer, but what the physical challenge of that, and also it's the combination of just being exposed to nature as well. And it's because we're sitting here on a computer right now, and I know after this I'll probably go outside and go for a walk for an hour or so just to get away. I like to go for a walk along the water if I'm not running, and it's just like an ultimate reset. To me, running it's just a reset button to the rest of my life. I can be stressed and frustrated and have all these things going on, but if I go out for a hard enough run, it's like you're good luck worrying about that when you're trying to focus on just getting your breath in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then it ties into the psychological piece too, and I'd be curious to get your input on it. But some of the places I've been able to go through backcountry skiing, for example, I went to Lassen National Park, which is in Northern California, a couple months ago, and not a single person, the most beautiful terrain you've ever seen, perfect weather, completely alone, just grinding up mountains. Mm-hmm. And honestly, there's kind of a guilt there for me personally that I enjoy being alone so much. So I'm kind of curious to know what your mindset or your thoughts are on running or sports in general in a community versus doing those sports solo. Do you think one should focus on one or the other more? Are there merits to both sides or what?
Dude, it's such a good question. I think for me, the appeal of distance running was teaching me to learn the skills that are required for me to flourish. And on a personal, maybe a selfish level, I felt like everything I need to be able to navigate my way through life, to a great degree could be picked up through running. The things I touched on before, like discipline and consistency and, listening to your body and knowing when to recover and things like that. So I think as an individual, like the sport of distance running and these challenging things has been really great. But I'm also a really huge fan of the team sports. I grew up playing team sports, and I think socially, like that's if nothing else, the ability just to learn to navigate your way through a group of people with different beliefs and different ideas and different opinions. And some people are muppets and some people are great, and trying to operate as a team there. Like I found that a challenge. And I'm also really attracted to the idea of trying to win over a person who just clearly dislikes me. Like if someone doesn't like me for whatever reason, I like the challenge, which I'm sure is, for plenty of people, motivation to like me even less. But I love that. I love the flip side of that. So maybe the physical, the physical challenges of the individual sport is what I'm attracted to, but the social challenges of a team sport is something that I like. I don't know. What about you? That's just my initial thoughts. Not very well thought out, but that's, in a nutshell, I think how I feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I appreciate that. And it plays into how we raise our kids too, which I find to be an interesting concept. Generally speaking, I feel okay with being alone. I do most of everything I do solo because I'm a single dad. I have a weird schedule. I'm pretty busy. So, I'm free to hang out between the hours of 5 to 7 p.m. on Tuesday nights. It's just like, yeah, feel free to hang out with me if you can fit me in your schedule. But I just value being out alone so much that I'm mostly okay with it. I do wonder about raising my kids. Do I want to encourage them to be around people most of the time, or be solo like I am, or a combination of the two? I think it's probably just coming down to a healthy balance, if I had to
Sure.
imagine.
Yeah, because even at work, like obviously we got a tour of the Cerakote factory over there in Southern Oregon, and it was really impressive. But one thing that stood out to me where you work is there are a lot of employees there. So do you feel you probably get like a little bit of a social fix there? Because I know when I was working full time, or when I was working with people, in fact, even now, to be honest, even now that I work for myself, I'm still a bit of a loner at heart. I love catching up with my mates, but I love being by myself. And I think that's magnified when I'm around people all day. I just need to go and recharge the batteries. Do you feel like that's a little bit of a social outlet for you as well? Or are you, even at work, are you sort of mostly doing your own thing?
That's a good point. No, I tend to discount work, but I spend a lot of time at work around a lot of people, and I love being relational with them. So, yeah, I guess I'm making it sound like I'm this psychopathic loner who goes out to the mountains all the time.
So you're that
Maybe I
too.
am. I don't know.
Yeah, you're both end.
But you're right. I work at a great company around some really great people, and we have about 180 employees now, and I have relationships with almost every single one of them, to different levels, and I'm really close to some of those people. So you're right. I do get that fixed there at work.
Yeah, but it is something nice. I love the idea on the solo scale of things of just going out whenever I'm stressed. As I said before, I find that's where the dust settles a little bit. I can understand why some people like to go fishing, some people like to go hiking, some people just like to go out on a boat or whatever. My mum likes to sit on the back porch and read the paper, or have a coffee or a tea. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the frustrations or stresses or anxieties in my life tend to dissipate when I'm surrounded by nature, especially, and when I'm by myself. Actually, Jewel, she was on Joe Rogan about, it must have been close to a year ago now. She was a
Is
90s
it Jewel?
90s Jewel, yeah,
Okay, yeah,
Jewel.
yeah.
Do you
Is she
remember her
Aussie?
from the? I don't think she is. I think she's born and bred in Alaska originally, if my memory serves me
Oh, okay.
correctly. But you would know her song. You would know her. She had about 5 or 6 just massive hits in the 90s. And I thought
Yeah.
that's all she was. I thought,
Do you want me to sing them?
could you? Yeah, but wait till I stop recording, because my listeners mean a lot
Okay.
to me. And
Touche.
one of the things that she said on Rogan's podcast, which first of all just highlighted to me how much more there was to her than just her ability to sing, was she takes notice in her life of where she's feeling stress and where she's feeling relaxed. So, for example, for her, being in front of the computer for 8 hours a day might be a state of stress. And, being at work with so many people for 8 hours a day might generally be a bit more of a stress. But then the flip side of that for her is, being down at the beach and just watching the sunset or the sunrise, and being out in nature, or cross country skiing, or being a distance runner, or whatever. She said for those elements, she feels a sense of freedom and where she can breathe easily. And for me, running and these things that we're talking about fits into that sense of like the exhale breath, just being able to go like, oh, this is so nice. And I think most of the time, I'm sure there's plenty of times that Jesse would disagree, but I'm a much nicer person when I've had my nature fix or my exercise fix, ideally a combination of both, than what I am, when I've just been day trading in the morning or come home after a bomb at a comedy night or, it's just the ability to come home and actually be like a little bit nicer person, maybe because you're too exhausted to be anything but that.
Yeah. You have no more energy. It's really interesting finding people like that. You would never suspect that Jewel was thinking that way, but there's so many interesting people out there that aren't runners that have incredibly diverse backgrounds who can offer input on life like that. Really fascinating.
Yeah. Man, what are you doing for training now? I know you said you've got a bit more of a system in place. Is there, in terms of a daily routine or in terms of a daily run guide, is there something in particular that you're following, or is it constantly changing in these early stages?
My plans are set in stone for about 3 weeks out each time because my coach keeps tailoring it as we go. But with that said, he gives me basically a block of things that he wants me to accomplish in that week.
Mm-hmm.
And my job, based on my schedule, is to fit those in the blocks that I can. So it's really nice because generally, I have 2 to 3 sessions of cross training where I'll go to the gym, do some lifting, or swimming, or stair climber, what have you. And then I've been doing 3 runs a week. So I'll do a workout run, I'll do a long run, and then an easy run. Easy runs are about an hour right now at a very easy pace. The workouts are generally, they kind of run the gamut. They've been track workouts, repeats, mile sprints, and that sort of thing. But I've also had 1 or 2 time trial runs uphill on set courses. And then the long runs this week, the long run was a 2-hour long run I did a roughly 12-minute pace or something like that. So that kind of has been standard for the last couple of weeks. And it's great because my coach is open to things like me skiing still. I'm challenging myself to ski every month this year. So I skied on Sunday. I just consider that a cross training time. And then I did my long run the day after on Monday.
Yeah, very nice, man. No, that's good. I actually, I'm working with a bloke who plays Aussie rules football, Isaac. I just spoke to him on the phone yesterday for the first
Cool.
time. And one of the things, because we're coming into pre-season here, so it's about 6 months away from the season starting again. And one of the things he said to me is he's keen to start running, but he's also got a love for swimming and he's got a love for the rowing machine. And I thought, oh, that's good. And I think it's important, especially when running's not your whole world or not necessarily paying your bills. If you've got the opportunity to get off your feet a little bit and give your joints a rest and give yourself a chance to recover, at least, recover in the sense that it's not going to be smashing your legs necessarily. You might still smash your cardio. It's a positive thing. If you can get back to the running course and feel a little bit inspired to, put the running shoes on and get out there for a long run, it's always a plus. So, dude, I reckon that's a really cool long-term strategy for this guy, this guy's put together for you. How did you hear about the coach?
He's a local guy. He does coaching like you. He does coaching all over the place, but he is a local guy, and he's pretty well known in the ultra running community here. I believe he's a pro, so that's how I heard about him. Just word of mouth.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, dude, maybe, I don't know how keen you are because I know you're a busy man, but maybe we can track your progress a little bit closely as we get closer to the big 200. I'd love to hear about how things are going and how you're progressing, and especially after it, man. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stories that come out of a race like that. So it's there's plenty to talk about. So if you're interested, we'll have to do a round 2 or 3.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And like you, I'm always learning, and there's no way that I'm going to grow just in running. So my goal is to grow in mental fortitude and mental strength and overall ability to tackle life. So the more I can learn, the more I can talk to you about, and I'd appreciate that.
Awesome, brother. Man, thanks for coming on. We'll do it again.
Thank you. It's been fun. I enjoyed it.
All right, brother. I'll see you later. See you, everybody. Awesome, man. I'll cut that recording off just there. Hopefully this doesn't hang up on you. One sec.
Okay.
End